Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever you're watching this. I hope you're doing great. This is David Ayer, as it's been in the past. And I have to apologize for not being on for the last couple weeks. I've kind of left you in the middle of the front end of the book of Luke, chapter 1. And I've been traveling and meeting with people, and my slate has been really full, so I've not been able to really get back to you. But I'm hoping to be more consistent from this point forward, at least until we can get through this first chapter of Luke. So we finished basically the introductory remarks, the dedication of Luke's gospel to Theophilus, and really the purpose of writing it, all those things, how Luke came to this point to write this gospel. And that it's an orderly account. It's a chronological offering of the ministry of Jesus to us. So I want to pick up from there and start going into basically the next section, which is really talking about the birth of John the Baptist. And what you want to know is this. There's a few things I want to say as kind of a bridge into our conversation. So first one is that Luke chapter 1 is really an introduction to two promised children. The first, of course, is the messenger, or the Elijah, and that would be John the Baptist. And the other is the Messiah, Jesus Christ himself. And really, Luke chapter 1 is about introducing these two miraculous births to us, how they happened in history, and the events that surrounded them. So, in that case, I want you to go in knowing that, thinking about that, but then I'm also wanting right now to give you some tools. Actually in the first video that I talked about Luke, I mentioned that Luke is a narrative and that much of the Bible is in narrative form because it's a history. One thing that's important to understand about the scriptures is it's a history of God and his people. And so there's a lot of times that you get an orientation historically about what's happening. And so the easiest way to tell the story of history is to tell the story. And so that puts it in a narrative format, which is just a story format, right? So as you look at narratives, I want you to begin to look at them in four levels, to analyze them in four levels. And the first of those levels is to look at the whole story. It's always best, if you can, to sit down and read the whole story in one setting. It's not always easy, and it will be impossible in the format we're presenting here on these videos to be able to read more than just a few verses at a time, because first of all, I read slow, and secondly, we're not going to read the whole book of Luke, for instance. And when we get into Ephesians, we're not going to read the whole book of Ephesians or the whole book of Galatians or anything. That's going to be up to you to do, but it's important to be able to sit down and read it. Read it through. Read it as a story. Read it as it was meant to be told, so that you're catching the whole breadth of the view, the whole topography of the story lays out before you, and you're able to really see it as it is, as it was really presented. And that'll allow you then to be able to pick out major themes. It will allow you to be able to really hear the voice of the Spirit and the message he's speaking specifically through this book, because this book is different than, say, Mark, which is different than Matthew, which is certainly different than John. All of them are written for different reasons. And so in that case, you want to read the whole thing in one shot so you really catch what it's saying. And so do that if you can. Second part I want you to read is from the whole story, you want to go down to the next level, which is the scene. And what you want to realize is that because this is a narrative story, it's going to move through scenes. You read it, and as you read it, you want to consider each scene and analyze it so that you can consider how it moves the story forward. We're going to be talking about the birth of to babies, right? Well, there's one kind of scene in chapter 1, which is going to be talking about the promise of John the Baptist's birth, and then it's going to shift over to the promise of Jesus' birth. Those are two separate scenes. We know that there's some gap in there. It says that there's 6 months between his showing up to talk with Zechariah and his talking with Mary. So look at it as scenes and understand the scene and how it's moving the story forward. Grasp each scene individually so that you can really consider the things there. Third level is you want to think paragraphs. Paragraphs are a continuous unit of thought. So after each paragraph, stop and ask the questions, what does this paragraph say? Or what does this paragraph mean? And really try to consider it as the unit of thought as you go forward. Before you go past that paragraph, understand that paragraph. So then finally, after you've gone through the whole story and then gone and understood the scenes and how it moves the thing forward, and understand each paragraph and what it's telling you, then you go verse by verse. And you consider each verse word by word, and then when something hits you or strikes you, stop and figure out, why is it that that word stands out to me? Why is it about, what is it about this sentence and what it's saying here? What is it about that is trying to touch me and reach me? So as we go forward in considering the narrative, look at those 4 levels and begin to really grow in your Bible study abilities. Because this, if you start doing this and you start doing it to the story of David or the kings in 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, they're narratives. And you start applying this kind of procedure to those things, your understanding of the scriptures and what God's trying to tell you through them is going to go through the roof. So go get it. We'll start our study of these miraculous births in our next video.